I didn't hear the words from her lips. I read them on a screen. 1 PDF, 3 sentences, and 13 years of marriage dissolved while I was halfway across the world in uniform. No warning. No goodbye. Just let's be adults about this. While I was treating the wounded in Mali, Serena was moving her boyfriend into our house in Hove, walking our dog, drinking from my mug, laughing in the kitchen I rebuilt with my own hands. She thought she was clever. She thought I'd never see it coming. But I'd learned long ago to trust my instincts. What started as a quiet betrayal became something far more sinister: fraud, forgery, and a real estate scheme that targeted deployed military families like mine. She wasn't just leaving me, she was trying to sell my life out from under me. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I planned. I gathered evidence, built a case, and when the moment came, I was ready. This isn't a story about heartbreak. It's about what happens after. It's about how you rebuild what someone tried to steal. Brick by brick. And how sometimes, the quiet ones are the most dangerous when pushed too far. Thank you. Truly. Whether you stumbled across this story by chance or you came looking for something real, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving your time, your attention, and maybe even a little piece of your heart to a story that, for me, started with betrayal but ended in something stronger than I ever expected. This isn't just a tale about broken trust. It's about quiet strength, hard-earned lessons, and what it means to rebuild when everything you thought was solid crumbles beneath you. If you've ever had to start over, ever been blindsided by the people closest to you, or ever wondered if you'd come out stronger on the other side, you're in the right place. So settle in. Take a deep breath. And walk with me through this. It's not always pretty. It's not always fair. But it's honest. And sometimes, that's what we need most. Now let's begin. This is the story of how I lost everything I thought mattered, and found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Something no one can ever take again. Let's dig in. I was somewhere near the edge of the Sahel Desert when the email came through. 15 years of marriage ended with a single PDF attachment. My name's Marcus Trent, 39 years old, a medic with the Royal Fusiliers, currently posted in Mali. 4 months into my deployment, Serena decided she'd had enough. The subject line read, "Let's be civil about this." The body? 3 curt sentences. She'd already filed. She'd already cleaned out our savings. She'd already moved her new boyfriend, Damien, into our house back in Brighton. I read it twice, shut the laptop, took a freezing rinse in the mobile shower unit, dressed for night duty, and said nothing. When I returned to my cot that evening, I typed one word in reply: acknowledged. No outburst. No pleading. No threats. Just silence. My bunkmate, Lewis, didn't even glance up from his paper. "Everything all right, Doc?" he asked. I shrugged. "Just stuff back home." He nodded. Soldiers know when not to press. Truth was, I'd seen it coming. 6 months before deployment, things shifted. Serena stopped asking how my day was. She started logging longer hours at the veterinary clinic. Then came the girls' trips, gym sessions that left her makeup pristine, and the sudden habit of locking her phone. I didn't accuse. Didn't snoop. That's not who I am. But I wasn't clueless either. I made quiet preparations. No drama. I secured key documents, passport, mortgage deed. Thanks to my veteran's loan, it was solely in my name, pension files, into a private lockbox across town. Moved my dad's old watch and my grandmother's pearls there too. Things that mattered. I opened a separate bank account. Just a trickle of my pay went in. Nothing big enough to raise suspicion, but enough that I wouldn't be left scrambling when the hammer fell. The night I left for deployment, she hugged me like she was clocking out of work, not sending her husband off to a war zone. "Take care, Marcus," she said. No tears. That should have told me everything. But a piece of me still hoped. Now, that piece is gone. She doesn't know it, but I was ready. She mistook silence for surrender. I've never started a fight in my life. But I've never left one unfinished either. I met Serena in the summer of 2012 at a rooftop party in Leeds. I was back from a deployment in Helmand Province, crashing on my mate Callum's sofa while I sorted out my next assignment. Serena had just wrapped up her degree in animal science but ended up taking a receptionist job at a vet clinic instead. Less pressure, she told me with a shrug and a laugh. 8 months later, we got married in a small registry office with just a handful of friends and my CO in attendance. Serena used to say she admired my dedication, though it was clear she never really grasped it. Her father was a regional manager for a finance firm, her older sister a pediatrician. No military ties in that family, just pressed shirts, holiday homes, and polite disapproval. Every now and then she'd ask when I was going to settle down and get a proper job, as though serving Queen and country wasn't quite respectable enough. In 2015, we bought our home on the edge of Hove. Nothing flashy, 2 bedrooms, a patch of grass out back, and a leaky conservatory I kept promising to fix. My name was the only one on the mortgage, thanks to a Forces Help to Buy loan, but I added Serena to the title deed. That's what you do when you think it's forever. My father passed the year after our wedding, a heart attack while pruning the hedges in his garden. Mum followed 3 years later, cancer. She never smoked, never drank much, but it still found her anyway. Their passing left me a modest inheritance, enough to clear Serena's uni debt and stash some away for emergencies. Over the course of our marriage, I deployed 4 more times, Sierra Leone, Iraq, then Mali twice. Each time I returned, Serena seemed a bit more elsewhere. Like she'd been playing the role of loyal wife but had quietly rewritten the script in my absence. I didn't marry into this to spend half my life alone, she said once when I hinted at another tour. I want more than waiting. I understood. I really did. But the army wasn't just a job, it was where I was needed. Where I mattered. By early 2021, I started noticing subtle changes. Serena grew cold when I rang during her girls' nights, snapped when I interrupted her mid-scroll through her phone. She started name-dropping her friend Amelia, who'd just left her husband and was finally living. Serena started questioning if we even liked the same things anymore. I suggested counseling. She said it was just a phase. But the late work nights became weekends away. New clothes appeared in the closet, barely worn. A gym membership that never got used. And always, that unreadable smirk when her phone buzzed. I didn't accuse. I observed. My dad always said, don't swing unless you're sure. So I watched. And when the email came, I wasn't shocked. 2 weeks later, I was in the mess tent when my phone buzzed. A bank alert. Another withdrawal, £7, 300 this time. I checked the app. Our joint account? Down to £181.64. The £39,000 we'd saved over the years? Gone, shifted to an unfamiliar account. She hadn't just left. She'd cleaned me out. Private Reynolds glanced up from his tray as I stared at my phone. Bad news? He asked. I locked the screen. Just bank stuff, I muttered. But that night, back at the comms tent, I made a call to our bank's fraud department using one of the encrypted baselines. The woman on the other end was polite but firm. Serena had been quietly siphoning money for weeks, first a few hundred here and there, then thousands. The big withdrawals? They'd started the day after I flew out of Heathrow. I ended the call and just stood there, the receiver still in my hand, listening to the laughter around me, squad guys video chatting with their kids, their partners, their parents. Normal life carrying on while mine was crumbling in slow motion. That's when Lewis found me, leaning against the wall like I'd been punched in the gut. Reynolds said you looked like a ghost at dinner, he said. What's going on? I'm not usually the type to open up. But Lewis once pulled me out of a live fire mess in Gao. I owed him more than silence. She emptied our accounts, I said flatly. Moved her boyfriend into our house in Hove. Divorce papers showed up while I was out on patrol last week. No pity. No hollow comfort. Just a quiet nod. What's your plan? Working on it. He clapped me once on the shoulder. Whatever you need, mate. That night, I couldn't sleep. I fired up my laptop and logged into the home security system, something Serena probably assumed I'd forgotten existed. Sure enough, there it was. A silver Audi in the drive. Some bloke I didn't recognize walking our Labrador, wearing my hoodie, drinking from my Brighton and Hove Albion mug. And Serena? Laughing, barefoot in the kitchen I rebuilt during my last leave. Something in me froze. Not rage, something colder. Precise. I opened my notes app and started a list. Call James, ex-paratrooper turned solicitor. Review VA loan protections. Ask my CO about emergency leave protocol. Double-check refinance papers Serena pushed on me last year. Lock my pension and benefits accounts. At 0500, I sent James an email, need legal help. Urgent. Confidential. His reply landed at 0615, call me. Secure line. When I hung up, I didn't feel betrayed. I felt ready. This wasn't emotional anymore. This was tactical. I didn't need to storm back into Serena's life. I just had to wait, let her sink herself deeper. 2 months after that call with James, I stepped off a military flight at RAF Breise Norton, and 48 hours later, I was quietly back on UK soil. I didn't tell Serena I was home. No texts. No heads up. I checked into a small coastal inn just outside Eastbourne under an alias. From there, I messaged James. We met the next morning at a roadside cafe halfway to Hove. He slid into the booth with a steaming mug and looked me over. You look like a bloke who's seen better days. Feels about right, I said. James slid a manila folder across the table. Everything we talked about. Deed, bank records, loan documents, and this. He pulled a separate sheet. It was a refinance form, supposedly signed by me. But it wasn't. Not exactly. My middle initial was wrong. The slant was off. Whoever forged it had tried to imitate my handwriting but got the pressure strokes completely backwards. She did this? I asked, already knowing the answer. James gave a grim nod. 2 months ago. She pulled £24,000 in equity out of your house. Not legal, not without your consent. That VA loan is under your name only. So she fakes my signature, takes out a loan, drains our joint savings, then files for divorce the second I'm on foreign soil. James leaned forward. There's more. She listed her boyfriend, Damien, as a co-applicant. He's got 2 DUIs and a suspended sentence for insurance fraud. Charming pair. I rubbed my jaw, exhaling slowly. What are my options? Well, James said, depends on whether you want to burn it down, or just take back what's yours. I want both, I said. I want what's legally mine, and I want her to feel what it's like to get blindsided. James smirked. Then here's what we do. The next day, I drove to our old neighborhood. Serena's Mini was parked outside. Damien's Audi wasn't there. I sat a block away, engine idling, watching the windows. But this wasn't about confrontation. This was strategy. Instead, I went to the local branch of our bank, asked to speak with the loan officer who'd handled the paperwork. Showed him my service ID, my passport, and my driver's license signature. Then I showed him the forged documents. His face drained of color. I'll have to escalate this immediately. I understand, I said. Police reports already filed. That evening, Serena messaged me. Who have you been talking to at the bank? Damien said someone's been asking questions. I didn't reply. The next morning, I walked into the Sussex County Clerk's office and filed an official dispute of the refinance on the grounds of fraud. I also registered a restriction on the property. No legal changes could be made without my physical presence. The trap had been set. 2 days later, Serena called. I let it go to voicemail. Marcus, we need to talk, her voice came through, tight with panic. The bank rang me about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can handle it like adults. Like adults. Same phrase she used in her email, the one that ended our marriage while I was still in Mali. I didn't respond. James rang that afternoon. They froze the refinance funds, he said. But there's more. That boyfriend of hers, Damien, he's been using your Land Rover, right? Yeah. Title's in my name. He got pulled over this morning. Driving on a suspended license. One of those previous DUIs finally caught up with him. They've impounded the vehicle. Good, I said, already picturing it. He had some interesting cargo. What kind of interesting? Prescription pads. From the veterinary clinic Serena works at. And not blank. Half-filled scripts. Strong stuff. I closed my eyes. She's nicking pads now? Looks like it. Police are taking it seriously. I sat on the edge of the bed in my seaside motel, staring at the wall. This thing was snowballing. Bigger than I expected. A part of me, stupid, soft, thought about calling Serena. Warning her. But then I remembered the footage. Damien in my hoodie, walking my dog. Her in my kitchen, laughing like I never existed. My life, handed off like a spare coat. No. This was the road now. No brakes. No U-turns. I met with the bank's fraud investigator the next morning. Name was Thompson. Looked worn out and wired, tired eyes, coffee-stained tie. This happens more often than you'd think, he said, laying papers across the desk. Deployed spouse. Partner back home makes their move. What's next? I asked. We froze the remaining funds, but about half's already gone. How much? Pound 12,000. Where? He hesitated. Technically, I'm not meant to share. It's my name. My money. My house. He paused, then turned his monitor toward me. Transfers from the equity account, mostly to someone named Daniel Spencer. Not Damien. Someone new. Someone I'd never heard of. Who's Daniel Spencer? I asked. Thompson shrugged. Not my department. But your solicitor can get everything with a subpoena. I called James the second I stepped outside. Daniel Spencer, he repeated. All right. Let me run him through the system. An hour later, James called me back. Got him. Daniel Spencer's legit, a real estate agent in Brighton. Specializes in fast sales. Mostly cash buyers, quiet deals. She was planning to sell the house, the thought hit me like a gut punch. Seems that way, he said. Those transfers? Likely deposits to get Spencer moving on a private listing. I leaned back on the bench outside the inn, watching the tide creep in. James continued. Here's the twist. Spencer's done work with Damien Cross before. Damien, Serena's boyfriend? Yep. They've closed 3 sales together in the last 2 years. All followed a similar pattern, properties sold fast and cheap to buyers in Spencer's circle. I ran a hand through my hair. So, this wasn't just Serena cheating on me. This was orchestrated. Could be, James said cautiously. I dug deeper into Damien. There's a disturbing pattern. He gets involved with women in the middle of separations or whose partners are away on deployment. Military families? I asked. 3 that I've found so far. Every time, the woman's property ends up sold off quickly, often below value. Spencer handles the sale, Damien walks away with a cut, and then he vanishes. I stared out at the horizon, my mind racing. And Serena? Hard to tell, James admitted. She could be in on it. Or she could have been swept up in Damien's game like the others. But this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was exploitation, calculated and repeated. And if other service families were victims, I wasn't just going to walk away. What now? I asked. I've already flagged it with the Serious Fraud Office and Maud's legal team, James said. It touches veterans' benefits, military housing loans, and crosses regional lines. They're very interested. That night, I sat on the bed in my tiny rented room, beer in hand, thinking about Serena. Whether she was a pawn or a partner. Whether it even mattered. My phone buzzed. Serena again. Marcus, please. The bank mentioned fraud. Damien was arrested with your car. What's going on? I stared at the screen, then typed back. Who is Daniel Spencer? Typing bubbles appeared. Then vanished. Then came back. Then stopped. Finally. I don't know what you're talking about. I replied. £12,000. Multiple transfers. House listing. 10 minutes passed. Then. It's not what you think. I locked the screen and set the phone face down. The next morning, James rang. The Serious Fraud Office wants to meet, James said the next morning. They've been tracking Damien and Spencer for months. You're not the first, but your case might be the one that blows it open. For the first time since Serena's email landed in my inbox, I felt something that resembled satisfaction. Not because my marriage had collapsed, but because the truth was finally rising to the surface. 2 days later, I met with investigators at the SFO's Southeast Regional Office in Croydon. Agents Palmer and Donovan handled the interview. They recorded everything, my statement, scanned documents James and I had gathered, including the forged refinance paperwork. Your testimony helps solidify a pattern, Palmer explained. We're looking at a coordinated fraud ring. This establishes conspiracy, not just isolated theft. What about Serena? I asked. My wife, or ex-wife, I suppose. They exchanged a brief look. We're still assessing her level of involvement, Donovan replied. Did she ever talk about money troubles? Pressures to sell? I thought back. She mentioned being house poor a few times. Wanted to downsize. I didn't see the point, mortgage payments were fine with my military salary. Palmer jotted that down. When did that talk start? About 6 months ago. Right around when Damien would have turned up. And the refinance? Never discussed. She forged my name while I was in Mali. They asked more, timelines, behaviors, digital records. When it was done, Palmer handed me her card. We'll be in touch. And don't approach Serena or Damien. Let us do this right. Understood. That evening, I drove past our old street again. Damien's Audi was back, he must have gotten it released. Serena's Mini Cooper was gone. My phone buzzed. A text from her. We need to talk. In person. River Gardens Cafe, tomorrow. Call you in the morning. The next morning, over tea and toast, I showed the message to James. Don't go, he said. She's panicking. That's not your problem now. I'm not, I replied. But I am curious what she's up to while she thinks I'm there. At 9:30, we parked opposite the house. At 9:45, Serena walked out, got in her car, and headed straight toward the marina where the cafe sits. 5 minutes later, another car pulled up. Real estate logo on the side. Daniel Spencer. Damien came out to meet him in the drive. They talked, then disappeared inside. Should we follow them? James asked. Not yet, I said. Let's see who else shows up. I shook my head. No need. I installed security cameras last year, inside and out. Everything uploads to cloud storage. James raised a brow. You never mentioned that. Never came up, I said, unlocking my phone. I opened the security app and tilted the screen so he could see. There they were, Spencer and Damien, standing in my living room like they owned the place. Spencer snapped photos while Damien pointed out features around the space I'd renovated with my own hands. I tapped the audio feed. We'll list by Friday, Spencer said. Already got a buyer lined up, cash, like always. How much? Damien asked. Place will go up at £395, they'll come in around £355. Quick close. Everyone's happy. And Marcus? Damien asked. Serena says he's making noise. Spencer waved it off. Military types always do. They've got deployments, chains of command. They'll make a fuss, then settle for something quiet just to be rid of the drama. I glanced at James. You getting this? He was already recording from his phone. Every word. I forwarded the footage to Agent Palmer with a brief message, happening now. 30 minutes later, the street filled with unmarked vehicles. I watched from 2 doors down as investigators in tactical vests moved in. Damien and Spencer were escorted out in cuffs. Calm faces, no eye contact. My phone buzzed. Palmer. We got them on tape discussing fraud, attempted sale under false pretenses, and conspiracy. You've been instrumental, Marcus. Happy to help, I said. And Serena? She's just arrived. She looks shocked. Possibly genuine. Possibly not. I looked down the street. Serena stood frozen on the lawn, hands over her mouth, staring as officers carried out boxes of paperwork and electronics. Behind her, our Labrador barked from behind the glass, his world disrupted again. What happens to her? I asked. That depends, Palmer said. On what she knew. And what you want. I didn't answer straight away. 13 years. Good years once. Before it all went sideways. I just want what's fair. The case moved swiftly. Damien and Spencer both accepted plea deals, implicating others in what turned out to be a multi-county scheme targeting deployed service members. Serena claimed she knew nothing. Said Damien fed her lies, that I was hiding money and planning to leave her destitute. That the refinance was all his idea. Maybe that was true. Maybe. Maybe it wasn't true. Maybe she knew more than she ever admitted. Either way, Serena agreed to a full settlement, restitution for every stolen penny, forfeiture of any claim to the house or my force's pension, and a written confession outlining the forged refinance documents. In exchange, I didn't press criminal charges. 6 months after that first email in Mali, our divorce was finalized. No fault. No drama. Just signatures and silence. On the day the last document was filed, Agent Palmer rang. Damien Cross was sentenced today, she said. 8 years. Fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Spencer got 12. Thanks for letting me know, I said. There's something else, she added. We found records tying them to 11 other military families. Your case helped establish the pattern. A lot of people might get justice now, because of you. After I hung up, I sat on the back steps of my small rental in the South Downs, watching the sky turn gold. I thought of those other families, other soldiers, sailors, airmen, who left home trusting everything would be safe, only to come back to empty houses and gutted lives. I never planned to bring down a fraud ring. I just wanted my life back. But sometimes, what starts as survival becomes something bigger. That evening, a message popped up on my phone. From Serena. I never meant for it to end this way. I stared at it for a while. Then locked the screen. There was nothing left to say. A year later, I sold the house in Hove. Couldn't live there. Too many echoes in those walls. I bought a modest stone cottage up in the Lake District instead, 2 bedrooms, a wood stove, a patch of land with a stream running through it. Quiet. Untouched. I took early retirement after 20 years in the service. I'd given enough. Now, I spend most days in my shed, doing small carpentry jobs for neighbors. Built bookcases for a retired teacher down the road. Helped rebuild a gate for the farmer 2 fields over. I named my new dog Finn, half German Shepherd, half something wilder. He's always nearby. keeps the silence from feeling too heavy. James told me Serena moved back to Cornwall. Working in another vet clinic. Trying to start fresh, I suppose. I don't hate her. I don't feel much at all anymore. She made her choices. So did I. One day, I received a letter from a woman in Wiltshire. Her husband was in the Royal Navy when Damien and Spencer came after her. "You don't know me," she wrote, "but you helped save our home. Thank you for standing your ground." I read it twice, then pinned it to the fridge. Some days, when the quiet stretches too long, I read it again. When the memories cut too deep, I'd glance at that letter and remind myself, something good had come from it all. Last I heard, Damien was still behind bars. Spencer, too. For once, the system held. As for me, I kept moving, one quiet day at a time. Building something steady. Honest. Something no one could fake, manipulate, or take away. Something that was wholly, finally, mine. If you've made it to the end of my story, thank you. Really. I didn't share all this for sympathy or revenge. I shared it because maybe someone out there needs to hear it. Maybe you've been betrayed by someone you trusted. Maybe life blindsided you while you were just trying to do the right thing. I've been there. I know what it feels like to lose everything you thought was safe. So here's what I'm asking, drop a comment. Not just for me, but for anyone who's ever come back from deployment, from a hard job, from holding down a family, only to find the home they left behind isn't the one they returned to. Tell me where you are in the world. Tell me what you're building from the pieces. Or just say you're here. Sometimes, that's enough. To those of you still fighting your way through betrayal, heartbreak, or silence, don't let it make you small. Don't let it turn you bitter. Be calm. Be clever. Think like a soldier. Plan your way out, not through anger, but through discipline. Protect your future the way you once protected others. And to the ones who stood by us, the friends who asked no questions, the colleagues who gave space instead of speeches, the ones who handed us the tools instead of judgment, thank you. We remember. I didn't set out to be a cautionary tale. But maybe my story helps someone else draw the line earlier, ask the hard questions, or install that camera system they were thinking about. Maybe it reminds someone that being quiet doesn't mean being weak. Stand your ground. Know your worth. And when the world goes quiet, build. Brick by honest brick, build something that's yours. Something no one can ever take again.